I'm sorry, I thought we weren't recording. Um, Once again, I will call the meeting of the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole special meeting Tuesday, May 16th, 2023, 6 p.m. to order. And Kyle, if you would please take a roll call.
Finkler.
Here.
Gray.
Present.
Hammer.
Here.
Motive.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
Rolke.
Present.
Steiner.
Here.
Okay, and the meeting has been properly noticed. And I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
I will motion to approve the agenda.
Alder Gray seconds.
Okay, I have a motion from Alder Finkler and a second from Alder Gray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then I will take a motion to convene to close session per 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility for purposes of discussing city administrator's resignation, interim city administrator coverage, and city administrator recruitment.
Alder Motive will make a motion to move to closed session per 19.851C.
Steiner can second.
Okay, you have a motion and a second. Kyle, could you do a roll call vote for us?
Gray.
Aye.
Hammer.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Rolke.
Aye.
Steiner.
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Okay, we are in closed session.
All right. Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Common Council meeting for Columbus. Pat, would you take roll call?
Finkler,
Here.
Hammer,
Here.
Gray,
Present.
Motive,
Present.
Reed. Rolke,
Present.
Steiner,
Here.
all present.
Okay, and if you would join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Pat, the meeting has been notice of open meeting? It has. And could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Alder Gray.
Go ahead.
Alder Gray moves to approve the agenda.
Alder Rolke will second.
Okay, have a motion from Alder Gray to approve the agenda and a second from Alder Rolke. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda approved. Correspondence and communications. Ruth, did you want to speak during the cow, or did you want to speak? Oh, right now you want to speak? During the cow.
And there's a couple of this here.
Okay. But you want to speak now at this meeting? Okay, you can go ahead.
His citizens' comment.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Do I have to turn? Okay, thank you. Ruth Hermanson, 986 Warner Street, Columbus, Wisconsin. For the past few meetings I've been at, or several, there's a topic of the city is going to be short of money or short of funds, and we have to find ways of raising revenue, or, we're going to have to shut down certain things. And, I'm lifelong resident here, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was on the aquatic board for 7 years, and we built that. And all my kids were involved in the sports. And in short, kids have to pay for everything in this town. And it gets expensive, and they're great programs. And what I'm looking at is and no offense to seniors here, the Columbus Senior Center does an outstanding job, and a lot of people that go there contribute dearly to our community. But if there was a way, at this point, I don't think any revenue is being collected for either some sort of membership or anything that direction. And I think if the seniors knew that they could help out somewhere, or they would, and it would become at least something that could break even for the city. Right now, I don't know if any revenue is coming from that. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. And now I would move on to have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Alder Steiner can move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Gray seconds.
Okay, I have a motion from Alder Steiner and a second from Alder Gray to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda approved. Okay, on to new business. I would like to acknowledge again the donation of $10,000 from Bob and Janet Grow, and so for the pickleball courts. So I would entertain a motion to accept the donation from Bob and Janet Grow for the pickleball courts.
Alder Rolke will move to accept the donation of $10,000 from Bob and Janet Grove for the pickleball courts.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion from Alder Rolke and a second from Alder Finkler to accept the donation for the pickleball courts. Is that a roll call? We're not spending, so that's not. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, donation accepted. Next on the item is the painting, the pickleball painting, paint lines on the tennis court, which was discussed. And so I would entertain a motion to approve the paint lines on the tennis courts to support pickleball.
Alder Finkler will make a motion to approve the paint lines on the tennis court to support pickleball.
Alder Motif will second.
Okay, we have a motion from Alder Finkler and a second from Alder Motif to approve the paint lines on the tennis court to support pickleball. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is to take action on the approving the capital street plan, which was presented last meeting by Jason Letha, our city engineer. So I would entertain a motion to approve the draft capital streets plan.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve the draft capital street plan.
Alder Gray seconds.
Okay, a motion from Alder Motif and a second from Alder Gray to approve the capital street draft plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next on is to consider and to take action on the Class A alcohol licenses for period July 1st, 2023 to June 30th of 2024. Those include Chester Bandits Store, Columbus Market, Dollar General, Dogan Corp., Quick Trip, Ultramart Foods, which is Pick and Save, and Walgreens. As we make this motion, you just need to make it a motion to approve them all.
Alder Rolke will move to approve Class A alcohol licenses for the licensing period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, to include Chester Bandits,
You don't
Columbus.
have to read through them now if you don't want.
For all of them.
For all of them.
Alder Finkler will second.
Okay, a motion from Alder Rolke and a second from Alder Finkler to approve the Class A alcohol licenses for licensing for period July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, consider Class B alcohol license for licensing period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 for Columbus Transport, Kurth Brewery. So entertain a motion for that.
Alder Steiner can make a motion to approve the Class B alcohol license for licensing period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 for Columbus Transport LLC, aka Kurth Brewery.
Alder Rolke will second.
Okay, we have a motion from Alder Steiner and a second from Alder Rolke to approve the Class B license for Columbus Transport LLC, DBA Kurth Brewery. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're fine, okay. Okay, motion carries. All right, item number 6 is to consider Class B alcohol license for licensing period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 for James Co. Inc., the Cardinal Cage, Dub's Brew, which is Cersei's Brewing Company, Columbus Country Club, Columbus Family Restaurant, LLC, Kestrel Ridge Golf Properties, Kestrel Ridge Golf Course, MP's Town Tap, Liberty Square Gas Station, Refuel Pantry, Columbus, which is Columbus West Travel Center, and Tequila's Bar and Grill. So could I have a motion to accept those?
Alder Rolke will move to approve Class B alcohol licenses for licensing period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 for all the names read.
Revo seconds.
May I ask a question?
And then,
Yeah, that's
Before, the country club, were you able to make an agreement with them, or are they paid in full? Paid in full. Okay.
oh, sorry, yes, I was just going to have the
No.
point of order. We haven't asked for any discussion. It's just been
Oh, sorry.
Skipping the step.
Good point,
Skipping the
good point, sorry.
Along Alder Reed's point of order, item number 5, why was that split out from item number 6? Was there something with Kurth Brewery's license that?
Kurth Brewery doesn't have a intoxicating liquor, it's just beer, just fermented malt.
Yeah, it's a malt beverage.
If you look, the parentheses make all the difference in the world. One is a Class B, one's a Class B.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. I was just a little confused on that one, because I'm accustomed to some being pulled out,
Yeah.
but only when there's other things. Okay, thank you.
So you had made the motion originally, or who had? I did. You did. Okay, and you seconded. Okay. So we have a motion to consider the Class B alcohol licenses for licensing period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 from Alder Roki, and a second from Alder Reed. Any further discussion on these? Thank you for that. Okay, all in favor of approval?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Okay, number 7, consider Class B alcohol license for licensing period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 for Cardinal Lanes Columbus LLC, Cardinal Lanes. At this time, there is a past due bill for them. Their current license does carry out till July 1st, so we will have other meetings before their license expires.
So with their past due amount, how long has that been past due for?
I think it was just one billing period.
It's just one billing period. Did
Yeah.
anyone reach out to them about it?
I sent an email to him.
Did they not reply?
I sent an email to him, and I did not get a reply. I did speak with Michelle all the way through until 4 o'clock today, and she hasn't heard from him.
Okay.
Was this a typical bill for them, amount? Do
I
you
think
know?
it was just their monthly utility bill.
How late are they? Is it like more than 45 days?
They bounced the check. They're not
Oh,
late, and that's what I
oh,
wanted
oh.
to clarify, yeah.
I vote that we table them then. I make a motion to table the Class B alcohol license for licensing period July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 for Cardinal Lanes.
I'll second that motion.
I wish we would have heard.
Yeah. So I have a motion from Alder Motif and a second from Alder Roki to table item number 7, Cardinal Lanes license.
Are we
Any further discussion on this?
tabling it to our next regular meeting?
Next regular meeting, yeah.
You still have
So
2
that
more
would-
meetings before it's crunch time.
Yeah. Okay. So if there's no further discussion, the motion is on the table to table item number 7. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 7 is tabled until the June 6th meeting, I believe it is. And then item number 8 is to consider the Class B alcohol license for licensing period July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 for Tea Time LLC, DBA Tea Time Wine Bar and Bakery. This is another one where there is a delinquency in the tax bill, I believe, right, of personal property tax.
I think for consistency's sake, I'd like to make a motion that we table the Class B alcohol license for the licensing period of July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 for tea time.
Did we get any reply from Tea Time at all?
I did email her, and she replied back that she was going to come in and take care of it, and we haven't seen her yet.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
We have a motion from Alder Motif and a second from Alder Steiner to table the Class B liquor license or alcohol license for Tea Time LLC until the June 6th meeting. Any further discussion? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carry. Item number 9, consider the tobacco licenses for licensing period July 1st, 2023 to June 30th of 2024, and that would be for Columbus Market, which is the Amico, Chester Bandits, which is the BP on the south side, Dolgan Corp. LLC, Dollar General, Quick Trip, Walgreens, James Co. Inc., which is the Cardinal Cage, Liberty Square Gas Station, which is the Columbus West Travel, and Kestrel Golf Properties, LLC, Kestrel Ridge Golf Course. So we could have a motion to approve the tobacco licenses.
Alder Finkler will motion to approve the tobacco licenses for licensing period July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
We need a
Alder-
second.
Alder Rolke will
Okay.
second.
So we have a motion from Alder Finkler and a second from Alder Roque to approve the tobacco licenses for licensing period July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. All those in, any further discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item number 10 would consider a motion to accept the city administrator's resignation.
Alder Finkler will motion to accept the city administrator's resignation.
Alder Steiner can second.
We have a motion from Alder Finkler and a second from Alder Steiner to accept the city administrator's resignation. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then we would need, as discussed in the previous COW, to take action on a interim administrator, and then also recruitment services for a city administrator position. And PAA was the preferred coming from the council members, so we would need a motion to approve PPA for both positions.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve PAA for the interim administrator proposal and the recruitment services proposal.
Reed will second.
Okay, a motion from Alder Motif and a second from Alder Reed to approve PAA for the interim administrator proposal and the recruitment services proposal. Any further discussion on this item?
Were we going to include interim pay for
That's
existing?
the
That's
next
next.
line.
Okay,
Number 12.
okay.
Nope, that's good.
We need to, no, A.
Oh, yes, okay. I didn't know, okay,
Roll call.
yeah.
Gray?
Aye.
Motif?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Rolke?
Aye.
Steiner? Finkler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, then number 12, consider and take the action on discussed of salary adjustments for during the administrator vacancy.
I'd like to make a motion to have a weekly stipend of $75 starting the first pay period of June for the assistant administrator, the clerk, treasurer, and HR administrator, to be reviewed when the new administrator is hired, new city administrator.
Alder Gray will second.
Okay, Alder Motif motioned and Alder Gray seconded on the motion that was read by Alder Motif. And is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, and then we would need a roll call for this, please.
Gray.
Aye.
Motiv.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Rolke.
Aye.
Steiner. Finkler.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, then item 13, we would, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the claims in the amount of $864,777.87.
Alder Gray moves to approve the claims in the amount of $864,777.87.
Alder Rolke will second.
Okay, a motion from Alder Gray to approve the claims, a second from Alder Roki. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, could we have a roll call?
Motiv.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Rolke.
Aye.
Steiner. Finkler.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Report of city officers. City administrator.
All right, just a few quick items. On Folsom Street, the driveway aprons were all poured. The fine grading is anticipated later this week, and hopefully the paving might be next week. So we'll see how the weather plays out. Restoration letters will be going out soon, and the trees will be coming soon as well. So the project is really starting to kind of wrap up, and it's looking like a street. So everything continues to go well. The county project from last year on Avalon, where we were going to mill and overlay, that's hopefully on their schedule in the next few weeks as well, potentially towards the end of the month. Just a small section of Avalon, like I said, but it's going to be good to get that project done finally and get it off our books and get that rough spot fixed up. And then finally, we've been busy filling all those seasonal positions that we've been talking about for a few months. So far, we've got about 50 recreation and aquatic center staff hired. DPW has filled 3 positions, and I think we're hoping to fill another 3 soon. So we're starting to see the filling up of all those summer positions that keep everything running and keep the fun going. So that's all I have.
My comments are just short and and sweet to the point. Red Bud celebration, May 20th, this Saturday, including the Red Bud Prince and Princess crowning. I was Al Strohschein, who is usually, I think, the MC of that, noted that there are 5 boys and 3 girls, which is probably the first time there's ever been more boys than girls for that. So, looking forward to that. And then I'm asking that residents be patient with city staff as we work through filling key positions. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Alder Gray moves to adjourn.
Alder Finkler seconds.
Okay, Alder Gray moved to adjourn, Alder Finkler second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I just need a quick.
Yeah, about 10 after. We'll come back at 10 after for the committee of the whole.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. It is 7:10 PM, Tuesday, May 16th. I would like to welcome you all to the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole meeting. And if City Clerk Pat Gable could take a roll call, please.
Finkler,
Here.
Hammer. Here. Gray,
Present.
Motive,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Rolke,
Present.
Steiner,
Here.
all present.
And the meeting has been properly noticed. And then if I could take a motion to approve the agenda.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Alder Finkler will second.
Okay. I have a motion from Alder Motive and a second from Alder Finkler. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. And citizen comments. Ruth, did you want to speak again now? No, okay. And then Paula Steiner. There you go, you're on.
Hey, huzzah. Paula Steiner, 442 West James Street. I am here on behalf of beautification. Geez, a timer?
Yep.
You're stressing me out, Joe. I am here on behalf of beautification. We came up with a fundraising idea where we would be able to, we'd like to be able to paint barrels or open it up to community members to be able to paint barrels for $40 in the parks. And we'd like to get this to be able to move forward. If we have council's blessing, it would be a great way to kind of show and get the knowledge out about beautification and also raise funds for a very, very, very small account. So I do have an image if anyone would like to see it. If you guys want to pass it down or cheat to print more than one. The goal is it would be directed towards school-age children, and just as like a demographic test, I was driving back from Beaver Dam with my 11-year-old, and she saw the sheet in the car, and she's like, "Can I do that?" So I think that it would really hit that school-age crowd, but we also have artists ranging from school-age all the way to adult, and I think we have a really great artist community, and I think it would be a really great way to just kind of spice up the parks with some paint.
Awesome. Thank you. So,
I'd just like to make a point of order. There are no time limits on our meeting unless the chair of the meeting creates a time limit at the beginning of the meeting. So Paula Steiner should not have been timed since you did not institute a time limit. Okay. If you want a standard time limit, then that should go on the next committee of the whole agenda for the council to decide.
Good point. Thank you.
thank you. Included in your packet are department reports from DPW, fire, library, police, treasurer, and wastewater. Any questions or comments on those? Seeing none, moving forward, discussion parking request from property owner of 300 North Dickinson Boulevard.
Todd.
Okay, go ahead, Todd.
All right. Hello, hi, everybody. I'm here to discuss parking at 300 North Dickinson Boulevard. I don't know if you guys are familiar with down the other end of the road. I'm the owner of that building down there. I've got 4 tenants that they'd like to see some more parking down there. Being a handicap stall at the corner, because they are people that get their hair done at one salon, and now I just heard from the barber around the other corner that they have a quadriplegic that'd like to come and get his hair done, and there's no parking down there. I know there's adequate parking across the street, but from what I see, it's Amtrak. There's a sign for that's Amtrak parking there, the runoff for Amtrak. After discussing with Jerry with the DPW a few months back, we came up with he kind of helped me with how it should look or give me some ideas on how I'd like to do it. I think you guys all got a copy of all that. So as you can see on your left right there is how it is outside this building here. You have angle parking, front to front, both sides, basically not even allowing enough cars to get around. What I'm proposing is on that end, just do single parking angled this way so they can just drive straight out and then give enough to go around parking. Handicap on the front one, and I guess do as many as you can. I know Brandon, is he here? Brandon, I spoke with Brandon earlier in this thing, and I mean, I'm not sure how that, when he asked the question, I guess you just go off the center line of the old and use a transit and mark your line and put the paint in the ground, and I guess that's really all I'm asking for is some parking down there. That's it? Oh, we don't talk about it now? Anybody got any questions?
I guess my only question in regards is, I mean, you know, back in the day when it was Codwell Lumber and then with the mill right across, with the truck traffic and all, does that affect Vita Plus at all?
Well, two things affect Vita Plus. One, from talking to the Amtrak, that's not a road. And the police ain't policing it. They're allowing the trucks to go through Amtrak, which they're not, that's not a road for traffic.
Right.
And everybody knows in this town, but people still do it. That's why I wanted to go with one lane there, or one parking, so that they could get around, you know, do the loop around, or just drive straight around, or have access to go all the way around, and then go to their wait thing or whatever. They use so many different ways there. They go out the other side. They go out Church Street. They go out Spring Street. And my other thing is, you know, the roads down there with all, you know, with all the money I put into all these buildings that I own down there, the street guy never comes by my place. It looks trashy. Do I have to do it myself and bill you? I don't know. I just clean it up. Why can't the city clean that up down there? I mean, that's a lot of revenue for businesses down there. It's bringing a lot of people down to that part of the town, and they like it there. And they, you know, with the parking, they had issues with the parking on Church Street. Couldn't have it angled. You got to go so you eliminated me from having angle parking, which I could have 6 cars, and down to 3 cars now. So actually, you're eliminating 3, but I lost that battle because then they have to close off the other side of the Church Streets if I was going to have angle parking. So my question is what's Vita's stake in this game? I don't. They're wrecking the road. Are they going to fix it? I mean, I don't wreck my road. I just put brand new apron in, and then the gutter or the apron. The city told me they didn't have any money to pay for it, so I just paid for it. I put it in. Because I want it to look nice. I mean, that's how it's got to be. You can't do something new and then expect to have, you know, later on down the road put an apron in. Well, the snowplow it'll bust all my stuff, so I just paid for it and just got it done because I want to clean up the city down there a little bit. So hopefully you guys.
President Roque.
I mean, Vita can go out Church Street, or they can go out Spring Street, or get access through Amtrak or something. I mean, I think they can get around there. He gets around there because when I mow the lawn at that empty lot, part of Caldwell's down there, I park my truck and trailer right in the middle of the road.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Alder Motive has a question or comment?
I feel like there's a lot that needs to be vetted here. Brandon, perhaps it could be something that you come back with a report at the next meeting. I mean, there's questions about trucks using a road they're not supposed to be. I have a question about, will this leave enough room for safety, you know, fire trucks and police trucks? And I love the idea of adding, you know, handicap spot and additional parking, but the information here does not support that it'll actually work.
Do you have a city engineer that knows how to read a tape measure that can, I've measured it all, there's plenty of room, that's why I didn't know. Since I think Brandon was telling me something about hiring an engineer. Well, you don't really need an engineer.
Is this something the city can look at a bit, Kyle, and come back with more information?
Yeah, I guess looking for what you want us to look at specifically. If it's the traffic pattern from VITA, we asked VITA, they gave us no response. If it's the fire truck turning movements, we can get that. If you want specific information, we can get it.
I want to make sure that there's still room for the safety trucks. I do want to address
agree.
VITA. I know that has been an issue for a while, especially when we had somebody else who wanted to come in and use a building in that area, and they were going to have trucks limited. So does that need to be looked at by planning and zoning?
If Kyle has more.
But planning and zoning typically wouldn't be discussing the right-of-way because planning and zoning typically doesn't apply in areas that aren't owned, so.
On that, my biggest thing is I need more details and better visuals. Like, I need a map, I need to see it, and I would like to see recommendations from like the fire chief or perhaps a city engineer, DPW. Like, I don't have enough information to say one way or the other is my problem. I like the idea of better parking. I love the idea of handicap parking.
Yeah.
But it's just not enough for me to fully
No,
visualize
I
it and
totally understand it.
it.
At least somebody, gets focused on it and addresses the issue, that's all. It's just, so I have something to say. I can't have a quadriplegic going, walking a block and a half to go get a haircut. It just it's not feasible, especially when I have two other tenants that's overhead doors, which they can't park because that's heavy equipment coming in and out. And that's why I went to the one-lane parking, because I know they're gonna have trucks and trailers coming out of those big garages. So when I did it, when I measured it and I made sure my truck, I have a big truck and a big trailer, I can make that corner. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today if I couldn't. All right? Thank you very much.
Oh, no, it was the very exact same theme, that I love the idea of putting parking there, and I like that it's the single stalls instead of both sides to give a little bit more room. I just need to see a map superimposed on like a Google Maps with this drawing to get a better idea, and also just measuring around the corner so the parking space closest to the edge, leaves enough room for a lost semi-truck to actually make it around if there's someone parked there. So
And we have enough room to make it go down a little farther to make that corner. I just drew it up. It looks like it's on the corner, but there can be a setback there. You've got to allow for the turn on both sides, this way and this way. You know what I mean?
I'll be great.
Just one more thing, like if we're going to look into this further, then I personally would like to look into more of Dickinson Boulevard. Because the way the double parking works, a lot of people around here drive large vehicles, trucks, SUVs. Even just my sedan is huge. If you are parked with two double cars, two trucks, you almost have to go up onto the curb to get around and actually get through the street. So I don't know if the way our parking on the entire street makes sense. So I think maybe just looking at parking in general on Dickinson would behoove us, because I don't think I want as much parking as possible, but maybe we are sacrificing some safety on Dickinson.
I would just say I wanted to agree with that because the parking is very tight just outside the building here. And I drive a pretty big truck, and it's hard to find a space to try to squeeze in there without almost scratching another car or hitting the curb. So it would be worth looking into.
Yeah. On one side, you have 20 feet of sidewalk, which you could cut some of that off. You don't need all that sidewalk. That's a big sidewalk on the other side, not the City Hall side, but the other side. That's a long distance from the building to the sidewalk. It really is.
Kyle, do you have enough direction? Okay. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just thinking, instead of just having the angled parking on one side of the street, maybe staggering them so you can pull in from one side or the other, every other, would make more sense. That way it's more accessible to both sides of the street in the middle, but it's only taking up one car wide still. So basically just moving entrances.
Every other?
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense to me. So are we comfortable with leaving that with Kyle to investigate? Okay. Next on the agenda is CHLPC ordinance discussion. And Ruth, did you want to?
Good evening again. I'm Ruth Hermanson, the chair with CHLPC in Columbus. This evening, Jason Tisch is with us, the representative with the State Historical Society, and this is what he does. So any questions, he's the expert. And then also tonight, Libby Gilbertson, Katie Nichols, and Henry Elling. We're on the subcommittee with it. And so if there's pointed questions to us, I'd only ask that Henry reminded me that if we need to speak, then please come up to the podium.
Okay. Who would like to start? Who has questions, comments? Alder Gray?
Well, I'd just like to start because I know there's going to be a lot of back and forth by thanking the CHLPC for all the hard work that they've done on this. This was years in the making. The city attempted to do this over 2 years ago and kind of dropped the ball, and CHLPC, a group of volunteers, picked it up and brought us something that I think is an excellent ordinance and something that we need to move forward on. I know there's going to be some opinions and maybe some slight tweaks, but I'd just like to start by thanking all of you.
Alder Moda?
I have several questions on different points. One of my big concerns is this includes non-residents on the commission, and it really is city policy that we only use residents. And so I would really like to see that changed. On section 117.6.
Just one quick thing. Should we discuss maybe one thing at a time instead of do a list of questions?
Sure.
Okay.
I think that might be more productive.
Okay, fine with that.
So with Alder Motive's statement about only citizens, in reality, a lot of our commissions do have volunteers from the greater Columbus area, not just specifically inside of Columbus. It is not the easiest task in the world, as I'm sure Mayor Hammer is finding out, to fully staff all of our commissions. And it doesn't mean that there has to be someone outside of the city of proper of Columbus on. It just means there would be an allowance for that. It could still be everyone in the city of Columbus, and the mayor and the city council would still appoint them.
I think there still needs to be some parameters. I know some of the other commissions that have rules about who can be on. There are parameters about who can. It just can't be anyone. There needs to be more tie. I would really like to see it be residents.
Let's see, what number is that?
I don't have that one numbered.
There are parameters, I just don't remember exactly which number, Alder Motive?
It's 117.4, I believe.
That 4?
Thank you.
Yeah. The red line is up to 2 residents of the various surrounding townships with a Columbus mailing address.
Right, so those are parameters, is what I'm saying. They would still be in our local community. A lot of the surrounding townships don't have Columbus mailing addresses, so that does actually focus it on a very, very relevant community, because if you have a city of a Columbus mailing address, Columbus is your city. that just because you live a mile outside of town doesn't mean Columbus isn't your city, in my opinion. And they are still frequenting our downtown, and they should still have a say. And I don't think over-limiting a commission is wise. When we're a small town and we have a lot of commissions to fill, if someone's willing to help and volunteer, it just makes sense to allow them to. And again, the city council approves the appointment of the mayor. It doesn't mean that they have to be outside of the city. We might have a full staff, a full commission of only people inside the city, or we might not, and then in that case, being able to go with just a mailing address helps. I don't see an issue.
I'd just like to add, some of our previous commissioners were from out of town, and Jan Ulrich, she's now moved into town, Retta Kurth, Carolyn Fredericks, not to mention the ones that started this. And Columbus is an agriculture-based city, Farmers and Merchants Union Bank, and the people surrounding us really do contribute quite a bit to the commission or to the city. And we felt it was good not to exclude them and to incorporate them. Like, again, when we built the pool, it was a Columbus area aquatic center to get started, to get more draw from the surrounding. So it was like working together, and it works pretty good. And some of these people, they've made just great contributions that we'd be
And a lot of
really
them live in
lacking.
Florida or-
Yeah, really lacking. And also just with this CLG status, they are more, they take into consideration their desire and passion for history and knowledge than they do the geographic location. So we felt that as long as it had the Columbus address, it would encompass that.
And, I mean, Ruth, could you imagine the current CHLPC without, like, Jan Ulrich, you mentioned?
Yeah, Jan Ulrich, Retta Kurth, and I wish I could go back farther, but Carolyn Frederick, she served for 25 years. She lives across the river. And, very knowledgeable, very esteemed members of the community. And, Jan with her calendars and her books. And Retta was our secretary, I think, for 7 years. And all the thing with Kurth Brewery, it just ties things together nicely. And like you said, it's just like, well, who is going to fill this? And sometimes those outlying areas really do contribute immensely to our commission and to the city.
So I would move that item of the, that we can move past that and agree that can stay as is.
Alder Reed?
Oh, yeah, I also feel quite comfortable. I understand stakeholders not necessarily being residents. I think it does make the CHLPC richer to have a larger expanse to pull from. So, yeah, I would second his. We're not voting now. But.
Yeah, we're not really voting. I think if we can get a consensus on one thing and then move is kind of our.
Are we all comfortable moving that forward? Okay. All right. Kyle, I'm sorry.
So I think it's important to remember that this isn't the beautification committee, it's not a fundraising committee. This is an extension of the zoning code. So this is the exertion of government control over the individual properties downtown and through these districts throughout, where the residents or not residents of the city will get to tell people that own property and live in the city what they can and cannot do with the property. And so they may have an idea of what they want the downtown or what they want the districts to be, but it does sometimes come down to whether or not the residents of Columbus feel it's appropriate for people that don't live here to control what the property should be, what should happen to the property within the city of Columbus when they're not the owners
Right.
and they aren't the residents of the municipality. Because again, this is a zoning code. The planning commission doesn't allow non-residents. And this is, again, an extension of the zoning code. And, this actually should start with the planning commission first because it's an extension of the zoning code.
Exactly.
But that's not how this has kind of transpired.
Thank you for being articulate in my concern.
I still say the mayor appoints and the council confirms. Like, I don't understand or see any issue. Plus, a large portion of the oldest families of our community live in outlying, have a Columbus address, but live in outlying communities. It isn't like we are asking someone from some prairie to make decisions for Columbus. We're asking someone that lives a mile outside of town to be part of a body that has been appointed by the mayor and approved by the council to help. I think that's irrelevant, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I still want to leave this open for a few non-residents. Would the limit be 2? Is there a certain number we would look at? That might be its own can of worms. I guess more
I think it was 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess more practically, I'm just wondering if it would be more comfortable if they put in the parameters for exactly who they could be, what type of connections might be required, what type of possible histories, just to have something, so it's unlikely to be someone random from across the country.
Right.
Those parameters are in there.
Well, maybe they need to be made a little bit more understandable then.
Okay. What was the number?
117.4.
Yeah, it's on the.
Can we just move on from this one? I feel like it's being dominated by one alder and people aren't being allowed to speak.
Okay.
I think we need a consensus before we move on, or what are we doing? I'm not dominating anything, I'm asking for a consensus.
I mean,
I agreed to move on already, Ian.
okay. We are talking about residents of townships surrounding Columbus with Columbus mailing address, which means that they are, in my opinion, stakeholders in the community. They're in part of the school district. Are we comfortable moving forward
Yes.
from here? Okay,
Yes, I'm fine leaving it.
okay. What was the next question that we wanted to?
My next question is on 117.7. The process for designation and rescission, excuse me. The way I read this is, this could happen even if the owner objects. And that's not right. If you own a property, you should have say in it. Period. I mean, I could go on and on about that, but
I mean, that is the way it is in our current ordinance, it is the way it is in the
Doesn't
state,
mean
at the
it's
national.
right.
It is right. You can't disagree whether or not your house is historic. It is or it isn't. Like, you don't have an opinion on whether or not your home is historic. That's not. And plus, again, the city council will make the ultimate decision, not the HLPC. The HLPC makes a recommendation, the city council approves.
No, that's not right.
Mr. Elling?
Good evening, Henry Elling, 650 South Charles Street. I'm a member of the Historic Preservation Commission. I was one of the 3 people on the subcommittee as well. As Mr. Ellefson said, this is a regulatory ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a feel-good ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
It has a purpose that makes people feel good, but in order to accomplish that, you have to have rules and regulations, policies, and procedures. There are many procedures in the ordinance that allow the property owners to be notified that there's a study being done.
Mm-hmm.
They are notified for public hearings. They're certainly welcome to come to the Historic Preservation Commission meetings. The concern is, especially with a district, that you would have property owners opting out so that you would have a sawtooth approach to it, where this house is in, that house is not, that house is in, that house is
But
not,
that's a
this
property
building.
owner's right.
I'm sorry, but that's the purpose of the ordinance, is to prepare a set of regulations and policies to be reviewed to maintain the historic character and nature of the neighborhood. If you have property owners opting out, then the purpose of a district is defeated. The purpose of a historic property or structure would be an individual discussion, obviously. But if you're putting together a historic neighborhood district, then the purpose of the study is to identify what makes it a historical district. And there would be a plan prepared to preserve that historic nature. Now, it may be that the only purpose of the plan is not to have a 4-story building built in that district. It may be that the purpose of the plan is that any garage would have a peak roof rather than a flat roof. But those would all be identified as part of the study, and it would be prepared and distributed to the property owners that are in the district before the public hearing, so that property owners would have an opportunity to participate in that.
And what if they still object?
Then there's a process for them to appeal to the city council to not be included in the district. The final decision is made by the by the city council. The Historic Preservation Commission is a recommending agent until the city council adopts an ordinance that designates the district. And once that designation is in place, then the responsibility of the Historic Preservation Commission is to enforce the ordinance, just like the Plan Commission is a recommending group that enforces the zoning ordinance. So if you're anticipating that there are going to be objections, the Historic Preservation should be working to mollify those objections so that everyone is comfortable with being in the district. If that can't happen, then the final decision is with the city council. And we would make our recommendation and our policy known at the time it comes to you with our recommendation and why we're proposing that district. And then if the property owners still want to object, that's up to the city council for the final decision.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Allen.
then-
Adam, did you have your light on, or did you? Okay. Alder Gray?
So I honestly, thank you, I don't think you could have said that better. That's what we have to keep in mind, is this is regulatory. Saying that a property owner should have the right to make these decisions on their own is the same as saying they don't have to follow other portions of our zoning code, that they should have the right to decide that they can keep cows in their backyard or park cars on their front yard. Like, this isn't something that, this is something meant to keep Columbus historic. If that is what the council wants to do, if the council wants to preserve our history, then we need an HLPC, we need something of this nature. If you don't want, if that's not the goal, then then there's no sense in even having the HLPC. But having it up to individual homeowners completely gets rid of the entire purpose of having the ordinance to begin with.
Alder Moto?
I have a couple of thoughts. I really think, I understand that this is a regulatory thing, and I really think a lot of this belongs with planning and zoning. I'm just going to say it. CHLP has done an absolutely wonderful job with fundraising. I love your passion. I love what you've done for the city, but I don't think you're the right entity to do some of this stuff. I think it needs to be with planning and zoning. So, like, I want to look at this quick.
Yeah.
Section 117-3 removes a building permit as criteria for obtaining the certificate of approval. but then 1178 kind of contradicts it. I mean, there's things that need to be looked at yet. It's a great job, a
Absolutely.
good start, but it needs to be sat down with planning and zoning and the city. It can't be rushed through as Alder Gray is trying to do.
2 years isn't rushing anything.
Alder, I'm sorry. If I.
Okay, go ahead.
I would absolutely agree with you, Alder Motif, that our group has done wonderful things in terms of fundraising. And the reason that we would like this to come forward and be resolved one way or the other is because at this time, none of the districts have been determined to be locally designated. So
And
technically.
could you please
I'm
clarify
sorry.
why?
Because none of the current ordinance has a requirement at the end of the process that a deed restriction be recorded at the courthouse in Portage. And our research and the city attorney's research shows that none of the properties have been so designated.
Wasn't finished.
They got to the last step and they didn't finish the process.
Let's
And this was
clarify
back
who
in
didn't finish.
Well, that's a question because the ordinance is not clear as to who is supposed to record the deed restriction. So-
in the 1980s and 1990s.
Yeah, I'm not pointing fingers at
No.
anybody here. I'm just
and-
saying, but
Yeah.
my point is, your members switch out. We are really lucky that right now, we have wonderful commissioners, or members of the CHLPC. You guys do a great job. It doesn't mean that's always going to happen in the future. And that's why I think that some of the stuff should go back to planning and zoning.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and this was our draft as the commission. And our anticipation was that the council would review it, and also that you would direct it to the city attorney to make sure it's consistent. He has much more knowledge in terms of the ordinance, how it's to be drafted, and how it integrates with the other parts of the code. We wanted simply to get to a point, I'll speak for myself, where the city council endorsed a ordinance, whatever it says, so that we could then take action on historic districts and historic properties going forward. Right now, we're in a limbo state because we don't know which direction to proceed because of the discussion at the council. So, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Ellie. Jason, did you want to,
If I may.
please?
I'm Jason Tisch. I'm the Certified Local Government Coordinator with the State Historic Preservation Office. The Certified Local Government Program is a partnership program with our office and the National Park Service. It was developed at the federal level. We administer it at the state level. It's a partnership program with local governments, and I'm the coordinator of that program. In order to participate in the program, and we have 79 cities in the state who are local partners. Columbus is one of them. And in order to participate in the program, you have to have a historic preservation ordinance that meets certain standards. Standards that were developed by the National Park Service according to best practices that have worked nationwide. Those standards include for your ordinance. So your ordinance has to include, it cannot include a carve-out for owner consent for designation. So in order to participate in the program, your ordinance cannot allow owners to opt out of designation, largely for the reasons that Alder Gray articulated. And I would also second what Mr. Elling said about how your ordinance is intended to work. Everything comes back to the council. it's appealable to the council by state law. There's a state law that allows every decision of your HLPC to be appealed to the council. So there is that check on the council. The other provision that your ordinance has to have in order to participate in the CLG program is that your HLPC has to have quasi-judicial power, quasi-judicial authority to review proposed exterior alterations to designated properties and evaluate those proposed alterations against the standards that are in your ordinance. Your ordinance, the new version of your ordinance. So I can talk about the existing version versus the edits, because I have been involved with Ruth and the commission for about a year and a half thinking about these edits. Back to my point. In order to participate in the CLG program, your commission has to have that quasi-judicial power. So they have to have the authority to review proposed alterations and...
Could you clarify something, please?
Sure.
To participate in the CLG program?
Yeah.
What's the benefit to the city? If I remember right, it's literally a couple $1,000s, literally.
You're eligible for a grant program for historic preservation planning projects.
Mm-hmm.
So that includes historic preservation planning. So a historic preservation plan, I don't know if your city has one. You can use it to fund a survey to identify historic properties in your community. You can use it to have National Register of Historic Places nominations prepared. Think of that as a process. That's
But the financial impact of that?
The financial impact is access to a grant program.
It's just access to a grant program.
Yep.
And it's really only a couple thousand if you get that grant, right?
You can get up to 50,000
Okay.
for planning projects. You can use it for education. The biggest, I tell cities to think about this as a process. The National Register is not just a happy, smiley thing that you do for your property. It is an economic development tool. Properties that are listed in the National Register are eligible for tax credits, historic tax credits. Commercial properties are eligible for 40% tax credit financial tool. Residences that are listed in the National Register, including all the districts, are eligible for a 25% tax credit financing tool. So my office doesn't ask communities to nominate properties to the National Register just for fun and games. It's an economic development tool, and it really helps to think of it that way. It's an economic development tool and a community development tool. As Mr. Gray was alluding to earlier, if your community wants to have its heritage, its history visible and use it as a tool for, attracting visitors, attracting whatever. You had a Hollywood film crew here a few years ago because your downtown looks like it does.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. However, Council President and Mayor, I would like to request sort of a compromise here, because I don't want to waste everyone's time, but I do have a lot more. There are some discrepancies in here, like I pointed out with the building permit. I have some issues with the timeframes on some of the things you've listed. As far as your decision-making and appeals, we've had a lot of complaints from business owners that it was very difficult and took months to get certificates of approval, and it was just a ridiculous process. And I want to review those things. And so my proposal to the two of you is that this goes back, gets reviewed by the Ordinance Ad Hoc Committee. We set a time frame for which it has to be completed so that we don't end up with a 2-year time frame again. but that then allows us to vet all of this and also get opinions from our city attorney.
Speaking of whom, he has his light on, so, well,
I wanted to ask Jason, don't leave.
sure.
As long as you had the floor and you are giving us your time tonight, can you explain to the council, I don't remember how this works, but the difference in the interrelation between the federal register, the state register, and the local register, because they're not the same?
Not at all.
If I remember correct.
Not at all.
Can you just go over that real quick, please?
Sure. At the federal level, there's the National Register of Historic Places. That's a purely honorary and incentive-driven program, the incentive being the tax credits. Wisconsin is fortunate in that we have a tax credit for commercial and residential properties. It provides zero protection for properties. It provides zero regulation for properties that are listed in the National Register. None. Period. The protection of properties comes at the local level. So your historic preservation ordinance is the only legislation that exists that has any protective power for historic properties. And that is very intentional by design. The federal government would never get into property rights issues like that in that way. And so that the idea is that is left to local municipalities and states, and however your local government wants to use an ordinance like this is completely up to you. We encourage it by offering the grant program. Well, it's really federal money, but it's so basically the National Register is the carrot, the local ordinance is the stick. Ideally, you would combine the two. If your community wants to have some protective power, use a local ordinance, but also use the National Register designation for that incentive.
For someone to get state. Just for clarity, Jason, if we were not a CLG government, would someone still be eligible for the 40% federal or for businesses and 26 for individuals?
Yes. You don't have to be a certified local government to designate properties or districts to the National Register. There is funding to do it. It's not cheap. It's not super expensive, but that's one of the things that you can use a grant for. If you have an eligible commercial historic district, which you do, since you're a CLG, you can get the $15,000 that it takes to nominate your commercial historic. I think your commercial historic district is already listed on the National Register anyway. But if the same thing goes for a residential district. If there's a residential district that's eligible, you can get the $10,000 or $15,000 it would take to nominate it and get all of those properties eligible for tax credits.
I believe we have 5 historic districts, and some of the CLG money did help us with the surveys on those properties. And if, you know, I've been on the commission 7 years, and to my knowledge, anyone that came to our meetings with the COA, if there was any change at all, it was done, if we had some, you know, corrections or whatever, modifications, it was usually approved at the next meeting. So if someone is not happy with us, what you mentioned, Sarah, I invite them to come to the meeting. If there's a problem, we didn't know about it, or they didn't come to the meeting, but you can check our minutes. We usually act on COAs very promptly, and our hands have been a little bit tied in the last year because it was brought to our attention that without making local landmarks, the COA was ineffective, even though it had been there for 35 years and functioned very well.
Right. No, it was several businesses. It was not one person who I have heard from. So again, I'd like to make the recommendation that we table this and move it to the ordinance ad hoc committee and put a deadline for the ad hoc committee to work with the CHLPC and come back with something that everybody feels is sound.
Do we even have an ad hoc committee?
Yes.
Who's on, did you appoint people to a new committee?
Yeah,
Okay.
they'd have, without
Well,
looking
that
at the,
helps.
yeah.
But before we even decide anything like that, I think the entire purpose of this ordinance disappears if we can't agree that there shouldn't be an opt-out for homeowners. Otherwise, there is zero reason for the CHLPC or this ordinance to exist, because it's pointless.
I just want to say that I agree with both of you on a lot of different counts. The thing we have to be careful about with this ordinance is how much authority does the CHLPC have versus property owners' freedoms and rights as to what they can do to their own building. We want to maintain the historic relevance of everything here, but to what extent can we stop someone from doing something? And some of the business owners in previous years, I don't know who, when, and why, but have had a lot of issues trying to get their business to look like their business and not the business it was, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever it was. And that's really thin line we have to look at and try to make sure we're not crossing. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's where you're trying to get at as to, does this ordinance actually allow them to say, no, you can't do something, or does it say, this is how we should recommend doing this, as opposed to, just saying no, because you're going to discourage business owners from coming into the downtown area if they can't make their building somewhat to what they want.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. That is the entire purpose of this ordinance. We either preserve history and we have an ordinance, or we don't. If there has to be things that say you can or can't do this, and you have to keep your building in a certain historic nature, otherwise there is no point in the ordinance. That's the entire purpose. This is a regulatory ordinance. It can't be a pick and choose. It has to be across the board. This is what Columbus wants to maintain our history. Columbus wants to preserve our history and our historic nature, or we don't. That is it. You can't pick and choose. It is regulatory. That's how regulatory ordinances work. It is.
Thank you, Alder Gray. Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm very comfortable with the majority of this ordinance. There are a couple little things here and there, but in general, I understand the idea that Plan Commission would make the most sense for some of the items, but I don't think that a Plan Commission could handle all of the minutia of the historical details of the buildings and properties. It would just be a non-starter, and it would just be, I agree with Ian that we have this or we don't, and I want to have historic preservation continued.
Attorney Johnson?
That is your first question. Are you going to do this at all?
Yeah,
Okay,
and that's what I'm getting at.
that's question number one. This reared its ugly head about 5 years ago when the city of Columbus received a letter that 2 of its properties were going to be declared as local historic structures, and the mayor at the time and one of the alders at the time just about blew a gasket. That's how this all started, the most recent chain of events. And it was the water tower that was hit by lightning, and it was the annex across the street. And everybody asked the same question that Alder Motive has been asking tonight is, how can you do this? And it's very clear that the way the ordinance is written, the way that the ordinance is supposed to work is exactly nothing was being done improper as far as the ordinance was concerned. The general concept of whether this is a good idea, that's a different question.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. But I'd also like to point out that if you read this ordinance, it takes away a lot of the power that the CHLPC currently has in our current ordinance and gives it to the council. The council is the body that now designates, as opposed to our current ordinance, the CHLPC designates. They have sole power to designate.
I would question if that's actually the right way that that's supposed to be done, because the last time that we had.
Well, we're
this-
talking about two separate things. The
I was
quasi
trying to
judiciary
talk.
is
I'll
completely
wait
separate.
patiently.
I'd like to hear what Attorney Johnson has to say.
We had a very long conversation a couple of years ago with Jason. Jason was in the room, and it was the first time that I had actually understood what was really going on with this ordinance. And he explained it very well. Number one, the commission makes the decision. You are an appealing body, and if I'm wrong, please tell me, because both Henry and Jason said that tonight. The final call is not made by the city council. The city council is here to hear appeals, not to make decisions.
On specific things.
And so that is very important, because this is the commission making the decision. What's going to happen here, and the first step
But not the
in.
designation.
Could you let him finish?
The first step in this process, which is the step that has been missing for 35 years, is someone, most likely the HLPC group, once this ordinance gets adopted, the HLPC group is going to go around the city and is going to say, which properties do we need to designate? And that whole process is going to get started. Right? I think that's what has to happen.
Well, we want to protect our landmarks.
Well, right,
And then we can also have a COA then.
But-
And,
There will
Right.
be a whole lot of letters going out that says, we plan on designating your property as a local historic structure, which is exactly what they're supposed to do. And that's gonna start the entire process, and there will be a whole bunch of people that will be upset, and there will be a whole bunch of people that will welcome this with open arms. And the process will begin. When the process is done, hopefully someone will remember to make that recording at the Register of Deeds office, and you'll have structures subject to the ordinance.
Yeah, I think Jason could probably explain this better, where the disconnect is between the two.
I think we're all good.
I think what Attorney Johnson isn't without merit, but I think we're confusing two separate issues, and I think Jason can probably.
No, what your attorney said is absolutely right. The one thing that I would add is that when and if somebody goes around town and decides which properties that ought to be designated, that final designation rests with you folks.
And that's what I was saying. The city council still makes the designations, not the committee, which currently the committee makes the designations. City council has zero say.
Correct.
But you can appeal that decision.
Okay. Right, but what I'm saying is this is better. The city council now decides what.
Correct.
What our attorney was trying to allude to is that doesn't work. But there are two separate things. They are quasi judiciary on the decisions once it's designated. But until it's designated, they have no quasi judiciary power. That's the difference. The city council designates.
That's the way your
New
draft ordinance
Yes.
works.
Currently, the HLPC designates without any say. This is a softer ordinance.
You were very clear during our last meeting that could not work that way, because that is how we had this set up, that the council was the final decision-making on what structures were to be in the program, so to speak. And you said that was an absolute no-no. Did I misunderstand that?
Either you misunderstood or I misspoke.
Or both.
Or both. And if it was me, I apologize.
And me also.
Most partners in the CLG program, that's how they work. When it comes to designation, the Historic Preservation Commission recommends to the council approves designation. Once it's designated, Alder Gray is correct, then that review and approval process then rests with the Historic Preservation Commission.
So where is the appeal process
I'm trying to
then?
explain that for
The appeal process, there's a state statute that allows the owner of a property affected by the decision of a Historic Preservation Commission to appeal any decision of the Historic Preservation Commission to the town board, council, whatever it is.
Right, but if the council if the council is the decision maker on whether or not it's supposed to be in the program in the first place, where does that appeal go to?
I'm not sure I'm following you.
Well, you just said that, and this is the only, out of the whole ordinance, this is the only section that I'm curious about, because this is not how I remember our conversation.
Okay.
So
Let's get this straightened out.
Maybe we're out of school here, but it seems to be the right time to have this.
Yeah.
So the way that this 117-5 reads right now is that the commission makes a recommendation on a designation of a historic structure, and the council makes a decision.
Right.
That's what this says.
Correct.
That is not how I remember our conversation from 2 years ago, but forget about that for now. So the council has made the decision that that the structure is in the program.
Yep.
And the landowner says, no, I don't like that. Where does that appeal go to?
Well, the state law allows appeals of decisions of the Landmarks Commission, Historic Preservation Commission. The designation of a property does not rest with the Historic Preservation Commission.
Right.
They make a recommendation.
Right.
Right? So that decision to designate rests with the council.
Right.
So whatever appeal process you have for council decisions would then kick in.
Circuit court.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry for the confusion.
Well, no. It's been bugging me for a very long time.
And I've been trying to get that through, and I'm happy you're here, so I'm not the only person seeing it.
Council President, I'd like to once again ask that we vet this. There is too much that people don't understand. There's still discrepancies in here, and we're not ready to make any decisions.
I still say we have to decide whether or not we want it.
Alder Finkler, I haven't heard anything from you this evening. Do you have any questions?
She's mumbling over here.
I am just taking it all in. I'm part of the ad hoc committee and the new one, actually. Well, not new one, the one that came back. But actually, it was one of my comments that I had made in a previous meeting is I asked, not a comment, I asked if this has gone to that ad hoc committee, and the answer was no, that ad hoc committee hasn't met on anything. Is that true?
That's not 100% true.
Okay.
So the ad hoc committee did meet for a while on this, and it was stopped due to prior governance for a while. While there was that interim period, they put this together themselves. It does have some different things in it than what was originally discussed at the ordinance ad hoc committee. So that in part is why I'm recommending that we take it back to the ordinance ad hoc committee and we put a deadline on making decisions so that it doesn't happen again.
Okay, so I think before we do that, we need to come to a consensus of whether this is something we are interested in
Yes.
continuing to
Thank you.
pursue. So I guess in the interest of, I guess you can't really
And-
even call it expedience anymore, but hearing everybody, yes or no, down the line, are you interested in seeing this move forward? Alder Finkler?
And to be clear, that means individuals can't opt out. It's regulatory. It would be across the board.
Are we voting on whether or not we would like to continue reviewing this ordinance, or are we voting on the ordinance as it is? Because the comment that you just made, Ian, makes me feel like we're trying to vote on how the ordinance is written. I'm a firm believer of processes and procedures, and if this ordinance has not been reviewed by the ad hoc committee, our process is it goes to the ad hoc committee first. So, and I'm asking if that is the process for it to go. I also think that it needs to be clear, especially if I have to vote first, it has to be clear what I'm voting on. Am I voting on to continue conversations on this, or am I voting on we're moving how this is written?
My question is, do we want to continue conversations on this?
I feel we need to continue conversations on this, something that I have heard from many folks in the community, especially considering the dingy property. I'm not going down that rabbit hole, but I would just like to say that a majority of the citizens that have spoken up have said that they want the historical preservation in this city to continue. So what does it hurt for us to continue reviewing this? I mean, if we need to make any tweaks, so be it. I mean, I'm not saying push this forward the way it is written right now, but I say we need to continue it. This has been sitting out for long enough. This needs to get done. I would even argue it needs to get done tonight, whether or not we sit here till midnight. But that's just my opinion.
What I'm trying to clarify, though, is unless you are comfortable with it being regulatory and not having opt-outs, there is no sense in moving it forward for more discussion. Unless that is a comfort level, it's just a waste of everybody's time, because that is a necessity. That is the basic stop and start of this, is you have to be comfortable that this is regulatory and it has to apply across the board and people can't opt out. Otherwise, what are we doing?
Okay. I guess my rhetorical question then is, how would it be different than me not being able to opt out of what the city says I have to do with my lawn height in the summer?
Exactly. It's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. We either have to be comfortable with it.
I have an idea. The difference being that this applies not to the entire community, only to a select subset of the community, whereby you might find yourself looking at a neighbor with a house very much like yours, but subject to a different set of rules and regulations. And, you know, depending on when your house is built, mine's in the 1940s, I'm mid-century modern, which is really great. You know, someday you might find yourself in the Millennium Country Club district. But, you know, what's historic now versus what's historic then, and what level of history are we trying to, I guess, preserve? And if we've been doing this for 40 years, when are we going to get there? And, you know, I guess at whose cost? Because if we're going to continue to say it's the property owner's burden to meet our standards, but only in certain areas and not other areas, it does seem like we're setting ourselves up for kind of a different experience in different areas. And if our downtown has struggled when it had a different set of rules and other areas have not struggled as much, I mean, that could be part of it.
New developments, you put certain sets of rules on just those developments that other existing homes don't have. That is normal.
It's existing non-conforming is typically that you don't make people retrofit.
There are what I call pressure releases that you can build into a local ordinance. I read local ordinances all over the state, and every city's different. Every city's tolerances for these kinds of regulations are different. There are pressure releases you can build in. In fact, the draft version has a pressure release for economic hardship, which is actually a really good section. There are other. And I'm available. I work with policy, this kind of policy, all day long, every day. So I probably know more about it than anybody else in the room. And I'm more than. This is my job. I'm available to consult and advise if you are interested in that. But I just wanted to make the point that there are pressure releases that communities can build into these things. It's not. And also how you use the ordinance, how you apply the ordinance is up to the community. Again, most of it comes back to you folks. What's designated comes back to you. Decisions can be appealed to you. So it's not an absolute tool. It's a flexible tool.
Amy? I'm sorry, President. Again, I'm recommending we take this back. Just in the area that Jason was talking about, I've got 4 questions on page 9 alone that need to be clarified. And then, you know, when you look at 11711 and section 117.8, you know, who's to do the definition of maintenance versus alteration? And some of that stuff I don't see is clarified in here, and we really need to take the time and go through that.
Can I just ask, Alder Moda, since you have made the recommendation a couple of times, and you have said, give the ad hoc committee or the plan commission, whoever this is going to, the
Right.
deadline, what is your proposed deadline then for how long before this would come back to us?
I think, sorry. I think my recommendation would just be a couple months. I think we could probably 2-3 months. Because we're going to need legal advice.
If you're going to do this properly, the most expedient way to do this. So the draft that you have is something that started with Mike Tome, Ed Johnson, and me. And it got done.
Trina was there too.
And Trina. Well, I didn't argue with you very much, so that's good. And the HLPC has taken it to the next step, and I have no pride in ownership about any of that. So, but if you're going to do this properly, your ad hoc committee, the HLPC, 2 or 3 members, so that you're not getting in the weeds, and Jason all need to be involved in this. And if you sit down in probably about 3 beers, you can get this mostly figured out.
It's honestly a much softer ordinance that is much more towards the city and the city council than our existing ordinance. Like, I think that's something that council needs to understand, is this is better for the city than what we currently have.
What if we said 2 months, just to allow people, I mean, everybody has schedules, right? And you got to coordinate them.
Is that a direction that the
I would say
committee is-
I probably agree with that. As much as we want to get this ordinance done, and we all kind of agree that this is something that should be looked at, and should be happening. The process of doing this is slow and arduous for a reason. We need to make sure we vet everything properly, and that we're not just giving out things to people, and then all of a sudden, it's not what we wanted later on, and have to go over this again and again. We want this to last for a long time. So as silly as it seems to go over it again, as you've been dealing with it for a couple of years, it should go through the ad hoc, and maybe in 2 months, in July, we'll address it again and be like, okay, we got something solid, everyone agrees on, and we're good to go. It might ease the timetable that we're looking at here at this particular meeting, or we could sit here forever and just go back and forth on some silly thing here and there.
Alder Finkler?
I would just like to let folks know that I did get the answer to my question. The proper process for this is to go to the ad hoc committee, so I am with the ad hoc committee.
There is no process set forth for that. The actual process is to us, but that's beside the point.
Alder Gray?
I still think we need to decide, do we want the regulatory committee of the HLPC before we waste the ad hoc and the CHLPC and everybody's time more? I mean, this has been years in the making. There's been a lot of people up here that seem to not want this to exist, so we need to either, is this something that we want or not? Otherwise, it doesn't make sense going to the ad hoc.
I would
don't
say
think
that
anybody-
regulatory is, you're going to have a regulatory committee, and that's fine. It's going to be regulatory, but the amount of authority that they have is what's in question, and that what needs to be vetted. They shouldn't have free reign of do certain things, and what is appropriate. Well, that's what the ad hoc is supposed to there discuss. It's not just up to us. Like, yes, it's going to be regulatory, like, planning commission, but what authority do they cross, and what authority does not go to their, jurisdiction? That's what needs to be vetted, and that's what we need to discuss. That's what ad hoc is there for, is to discuss that. So we come back with us, like, okay, this is the authority that they have, this is what's going on here, we can all agree to this, boom, we're done, as opposed to hashing it out between the 7 of us.
Libby?
I just I'm Libby Gilbertson. I was on the subcommittee for CHLPC and writing the ordinance. I just want to point out that should the ordinance pass as written or with modifications, we're not going to sit down the next day and send out letters to families saying, oh, by the way, your house has a historical significance, therefore we're going to designate it. It doesn't work that way. The piece that seems to be missing and hasn't been talked about is education. So there's going to be a process to alerting the community and to remind them and educate them about what Columbus is, why we got to this point, and what it means to be historical. So
It's not going to be a quick pen to letter, here we go, in the mail. It's not going to work that way, and it shouldn't work that way. So there's going to be a lot of preparation to get to the point that houses are actually going to get to the point of being designated. So I just want people to understand that and be comfortable with the process. I mean, in reality, this should be like a really fun thing for Columbus. I mean, this is the type of stuff that puts things on the map, that makes us a destination, that brings people here to spend time and money here. So we want to do it right and do it once. So I just want to make sure that the council and the community is aware that this isn't going to be a really fast thing. It will probably be slower than what people think it's going to be, because there's things that we have to do to make sure our community understands what it means. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I agree with Alder Motive and with Alder Steiner that and Alder Finkler, we moved this to the Ordinance Ad Hoc Committee, working in conjunction with members of HLPC in order to get through it and get whatever answers, questions that need to be answered. So.
Reed, did you have any?
No.
Okay.
Aren't you the one to go and get consensus?
So I guess that would be, but I do appreciate your input, Mayor. I guess that would be a consensus that we do need to move this then to the ad hoc committee in conjunction with the HLPC. And 2 months, is that an amount of time that everybody's comfortable with? 2 months, with the goal of having it back here in 2 months?
Most is done already, so
Yeah.
fine tuning it.
Yeah.
Right. I think it'll only take that long just because people have, everybody's different schedules.
And I,
Honestly, most of it, if there's only a couple of people, you could get it done in a couple of hours.
and I thank you all for being here tonight. Next item on the agenda, if we're going to move forward, is convene to close session per 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to discuss potential developments in the city of Columbus, specifically 152, 160 North Dickinson Boulevard buildings. Could I take a motion to convene to closed session?
Alder Motive will make a motion to convene to close session.
Alder Steiner can second.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Alder Motive and a second from Alder Steiner. And Pat, if you could take a roll call for us, please.
Hammer?
Aye.
Gray?
Aye.
Motive?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Rolke?
Aye.
Steiner?
Aye.
Finkler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We will not be coming back on the air tonight. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your night.